It's winter and behind me is 50 plus acres of water to try and catch a carp in. Throughout the course of this episode, we're going to be focusing on big pit carp fishing. Now, in terms of a guest, I'm meeting up with the one and only Dan Yeomans. Now, Dan is very much an expert on this type of venue. He loves this type of fishing, and historically, he's had some incredible big pit carp captures. In addition to that, as it's an episode of The Drop, we've got loads of different sections scattered throughout the programme, including a look at our brand new range of Air Force rods. So while I get sorted and try and find Dan, sit back and enjoy the show. Here he is.
Here he is.
How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm alright, mate. You?
Good. I thought you looked busy here on the end of this wind on a big pit, my boy. It's a bit of you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit of me. It's getting late on in the year, so I don't know how much longer that'll sit on a pit this size, but yeah, I thought I'd come give it a go.
What are you doing down here, boy? What you seen?
I've seen a couple.
Have you?
A couple, yeah, which to be honest, I turned up thinking this can be hard.
Yeah.
We're at the end of November. It can be, you know, nothing out there. But yeah, I turned up this morning, first light, and yeah, I saw a couple. Lake split into kind of two, as you would have seen. Yeah. But this smaller bay, yeah, I saw a couple showing there. Not loads, but literally stood here for about an hour, saw two. Nothing up that end really. Not to say there's none there. I mean, there's a lot of fish in here, but it was a sign, and I was happy to go on that. So just having a bit of a lead up.
I am going to get out your hair, let you crack on, let yourself get established and sorted. I'm going to have a little look at the main bowl.
Yeah.
And if all else fails, I'm going to absolutely tuck you up and go in next door.
Mate, it's big enough for the both of us. So yeah, by all means, we'll have a little social.
Yeah, mate, I look forward to it. Right, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go and explore.
Sound.
And I'll touch base soon, mate, yeah?
In a bit. I think there's always rule books in carp fishing, isn't there? Of you must find the gravel spots or fish on the edge of the silt. Every lake's different, and if you find a lake where it's all gravel, then what's the point in fishing on the gravel spot? So no, I'm just having a little look what's out there really. It's not really about trying to find a spot as such at the moment. I'm just having a look what is out there. Is there weed? Is there depth changes? Then I'll start thinking a little bit more in terms of like what I want to fish on or look for. That might be a different depth rather than a substrate on the bottom, but until I know what's in front of me, I'll just be guessworking. I've had a good feel around now, and I'm pretty confident that substrate wise at least it's all very similar, so, and all very presentable. So if I do see anything else poke its head out, I know I can cast to it, and I'll be fishing. So I'm a simple man really. Well, that's what my girlfriend tells me. She tells me I'm simple. No, I've always gone with it, like I don't really change my rig all that much unless I'm doing something like changing to a choddy or a hinge because I'm casting blind. My absolute go-to rig has been the same for so many situations, so long, never change it. Just a hair rig, liner, whether I'm in Europe, whether I'm fishing at home. I've got so much confidence in it. I drop so little fish on it, but I've only gone and changed my rig for the session. I think it's the pressure of fishing with Hassan. No, I knew there'd be some long chucks on this session, and I also knew that it could get quite windy, so I wanted to make sure that I've got a rig which I've got utmost confidence in when it comes to making sure everything's presented out there. So I've stripped everything back a little bit. I've got a fluorocarbon boom which is really stiff, which should help it not tangle on the way out there, and when it enters the water with such force, it means it should just go down again without tangling and being nice and neat. But because I'm at the limits of my casting here, I want to not have to have a PVA bag or a bit of foam on the hook, which is obviously going to take yards off your cast. So really simple, Ronnie rig style setup, fluorocarbon boom. I think that's in £20, a size 5 hook, and I'm just sending out pop-ups topped with maggots. And for the first 2 rods, they went out sweet, hit the clip nice, went down nice, so hopefully they'll work.
I'm going to share with you a few key tips that I've picked up over the years of fishing the winters to hopefully keep you motivated and make sure you get out there and catch them through the winter and the colder months. Starting with a tip based on the venue. Obviously you're going to choose a venue that was going to give you bites. Don't go onto a venue where you're going to be battling on a big pit that doesn't have any winter form just for the sake of being carpy. But in addition to that, I've found that if you can locate or find the bite times, what you can do is fish a shorter session around that bite time. Those shorter sessions can be ultra productive. They also mean that you only are effectively angling when you've got an increased likelihood of getting a bite. There's no use in sitting there for 8-10 hours of inactivity through the course of the bad weather and the daytime, for example. If you know on your venue that bite time's 2 AM, you can get there just before dark, get yourself prepped, get some bait out and really monopolise on that bite time. My next tip would be all about comfort. You've heard it all before, layer up, make sure you're warm, drink plenty of warm drinks. I would say in that, comfort lies in not only the warmth and layering of your clothing, but also primarily keeping the damp out. You'll see in most of my fishing, I use the ZT waterproofs. What that does is mean that none of the actual dampness can attack my skin or the inner layers that I've got. That is really going to speed up how quickly you get cold. And if you get damp, the cold gets in and it's really, really, really hard for you to get warm. I've always got a spare pair of waterproofs in a water box in my power barrow. That way, if I'm doing fish pictures, for example, or if there's some rain coming through, I've always got a fresh set of waterproofs to keep me dry. In addition to that, power. I know it's more of a modern thing, but there's been instances where I've not been able to recharge head torches because I've run out of power supply. So for me, I always take the biggest of our Nash power banks hub to make sure that whether it's my phone, head torch, even a heated blanket, that I've got adequate power supply for those sessions when I'm out. My final tip would be to make sure that you stay motivated in your angling. You can either set yourself a target through the winter or pick yourself a venue where you know you're going to get a multitude of activity and bites. For me personally, I also, as well as targeting carp, like to target predators such as pike and perch through the winter months. They're often a lot more hospitable, and also it's a great time of year to target them at their very best. So whatever it is that you need to do to find that motivation, make sure that you're active, make sure that you put yourself in the right places, and make sure that you're fresh for every session and winter doesn't become a big long slog. A quiet night. I've just nipped round to see Danny Boy to have a coffee, and the right hander is absolutely tanked off. I'm playing one, the wind's blowing, it's BC big pit vibes, dare I say it. Water boy, big pit. Oh, cheers, mate.
Oh, that's a right result.
That is a result. I'm well chuffed with that. Well, that is an absolute result. It's the end of November on a big pit. Seen a few fish show, deployed some rods in the area, and we've got one. Just shows your location is ever so important. I couldn't be happier. I'm going to get a few stills and then slip this one back. What a result.
And she's blowing a bit, boy, isn't she?
Yeah, ain't she just?
It is big pit. Talk to me about big pits. You love fishing them.
Yeah.
We've said it's your bag. Why is that, mate?
Because it makes me feel hard. I do it for the clout. Just drop that. Yeah, fish big pits, mate.
I'm all about the
I'm
big
all
pit
about
life.
big pits. No, it comes from I like the challenge more than anything. I think Two things: challenge and like just genuinely location. I grew up and I live in the Cambridgeshire area, so a lot of the fisheries around me are big old gravel pits. And then, so you know, they're easy to fish because just of proximity. But then the second and the main reason I do it, because obviously there's small lakes around me as well.
Yeah.
The main reason I do it is because I like the challenge. I don't get loads of time to fish, and I'd rather fish somewhere which like properly pushes me to the limits. But when you catch one, the feeling is just like that much better. I'd prefer that to go somewhere a little bit easier, catch 2 or 3 fish every time I go. I'd rather build into the capture of something. A bit weird, I know, like I blank a lot, mate, and it's part and parcel with this sort of fishing, but I just like the rawness, the wildness, the challenge aspect.
For you, that sort of starting approach, when you've got like big sheets of water, potentially not a lot of stock, is it a case of getting a load of intel before? Is it a case of just going there and going about it your way? How does that approach sort of build?
So I'd say it's not like kind of, again, typical fisheries, typical syndicates, because you can't just jump on Facebook or the Instagram page. There's not like group chats with, well, the lakes I've fished in the past haven't been. They've been very, very little information on them, really. So that's not really an avenue for, well, hasn't been an avenue for me. One of the biggest benefits is the fact that I do live so close, and I don't think I'd be able to fish the lakes I have if they were an hour's drive away. Because I don't get a lot of time, you know, the last couple of years it's literally been like a night a month, or I'd book a weekend and I'd have a couple of weekends a year. So if I'm fishing like that, I need to be able to still get down regularly. So a lot of my approach is, yeah, I don't get to fish them loads, but I'll make sure that I'm down there at least once a week having a mooch about, at least. You know, a lot of the pits, like I say, they've been 10-15 minutes drive from my door. So I can pop in before work, I can pop in after work, I can go for an hour with the dogs at the weekend. I can, you know, just keeping in touch with the place. I think that's a big benefit. So my approach has always been keep on the water, keep in touch with the water, keep bait going into certain places at certain times of year. Obviously it's always changing, but it goes back to it again. Like if I can know where the fish are kind of holding up, leading up to a session, or at that time of year, because I've been down a lot, I know where they're going to be. That's a large part of my approach.
A little bit about pre-baiting. Obviously, that's an element that potentially, location-wise, I'm guessing you apply bait to certain areas that you can then drop in on, and you've got an area where you know at least there's been some bait introduced.
Yeah, I think that's, for me, on those big expanses of water, it's the biggest edge is putting bait in, because you know, especially when there's not a lot of anglers on there, your bait can be such an attractor to those fish, more so than any other lake, where they can actually pick and choose when they want to eat it. That, you know, that patch of boilie's been there for 4 days, I won't touch it for a little bit, and then they come around. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas there, they might come across that and go, oh my God, food, we haven't seen food like this in ages.
Mate, you've caught some amazing fish, but also to do that with your job and everything, I think is absolutely hats off to you. Like, there's many a place you can get a bite, but it seems that your mindset, your sort of mentality around your fishing is not about getting a few bites. It's very much chucking yourself in the deep end, having quite a lot of things against you. What are key things for you that have stood you the sort of test of time that you wouldn't be without when you're targeting this type of venue?
Especially when they're low stock. Yeah. You've got to have a resilience to you in terms of, like, I don't care about catching, and you've got to be like that. You've got to not really. You can't want to put a fresh fish on your Instagram every week. You know, you can't be like that. So what I'm saying is, you've got to be prepared to blank quite a lot. Got to be prepared to go through the long periods without even seeing anything. And I think that's where you got to be quite resilient.
Yeah.
But if that's what you enjoy, and, you know, like, I get rinsed in the office because I never catch anything, but that's what I love. You know, and at the end of the day, fishing is individual to so many different people. And if that's what you love doing, go and do it. Right, we're on the move. We're on the move. More hectic, and I don't know where to start, but we've certainly seen a few fish show in the swim next door. That wind's really seemed to pick up, and coincidence or not, but the fish have just started showing just on the end of it there. So, you know, I rechucked one rod on one of the shows, but after 5-10 minutes we saw a couple more. So I'm just gonna slide myself into the next swim and give it a go there for the night. I think the kit I use for when I'm fishing the big pits, it's evolved a little bit over time, and there is definitely aspects of my tackle which I've had to tweak and change over the last few years, fishing the big pits, which, you know, really became quite essential for fishing big waters. You know, the most prominent is probably the rods. I love scope rods. I use scope rods quite a lot, but I soon found out that fishing a big water, you've got to use a 12-foot rod. You know, so many different situations. You know, just because it's a big pit doesn't mean you're casting a long way, but if I'm seeing them show at the limits of my casting ability, I need a rod which is going to be able to do that for me. I'm not a great caster, you know, I'm not someone who can put a lead 160 yards if I wanted to. Big crosswind comes in and it just doesn't faze me. Like, I do have a limit to my casting, so I've always thought, and this isn't just with my fishing tackle, this is anything in life, like I'll always just strive to, like, if I can, I'll get the best I can. Because if that puts an extra 10 yards onto my cast, then it will pay itself back in, you know, maybe not that year, but one of the years that I'm fishing, I'll be glad to have like the best rods I can get. At the moment, I've just upgraded to the Air Force rods. I went for the F40s again because I'm not the best caster, but if I can justify putting an extra 10, 15, 20 yards on my cast because I've got the tools to do so, then I'm absolutely going to do it. All of my kit gets battered and bruised. I'm not like the most quaint angler. Like I said earlier when speaking to Hassan, the thing for me about the big pit fishing is going out there doing it, and I don't want any kit that lets me down. So everything from the reels, the rods, the alarms, you know, they go under the water, they get chucked on the rocks, they get bundled into the van. I'm moving, I'm crashing about. I'm not, you know, the most dainty and elegant. So I need kit which is going to be up to the job, and all my kit has been for years and years. Main lines, I think, with the big pits there's so many different situations, and over the years I've had to use mono, braid, floating braid, fluorocarbon. One thing that I came to realise is I need to be prepared for any situation when it comes to fishing the pits like this. So in my van I've always got spools of 20-pound mono, 12-pound mono for casting. The one I use the most is sinking braid. I find that the most versatile, the strongest. I can cast it, it sinks well. So the sinking braid's usually my go-to to be as mobile as I can. Yes, again, another very expensive item, but one which personally I think it's Nash Tackle's best item. It's the power barrow. I always laughed at them when they first said we're going to bring a power barrow to our range. I thought, that's not for us, you know, we're Nash Tackle, we make it happen, we go to the moon and back. But as soon as I got one, I never looked back, because it is just like a normal barrow, but it's got a go button. So having the ability to just bundle everything onto there, just away. And if I'm trekking around those big pits, I need something which makes it nice and easy to move to the other end if I need to at the drop of a hat. Like I say, it's not going to catch me any more fish, but what it does do is it allows me to put myself in those situations to have a chance. There's times where I perhaps woke up and thought I should move, but that's effort. It's not effort, not anymore. And that's where I think it's given me, that's why it's come into my armoury for big pit fishing. It's pretty essential. I think what I'm trying to say is, like, everything that I use, it's got a purpose, and it's found its way into my armoury over a number of years. I've got a policy: if I haven't used that item in 6 months or a whole season, it's gone, you know. And so that means that what's in my tackle bag, what's in my food bag, what's inside my barrow is only the stuff which actually gets used session by session, or, you know, season by season. It's last light. I was about to actually just send out a bit of bait. I said earlier I was going to put out a bit of bait over each rod. I was going to wait till last light to do it. And Yeah, left-handers just pulled up tight on a single look bait where we'd seen them show close to the reeds. And we're playing one. And just so I've been playing it, we've seen, what, two just show? Only close in as well, small ones, but they've suddenly just become quite active. Hassan, can you grab me my net, please, boy? It's a little stocky, but we'll take that at this time of year on the end of a big old pit. Hey!
Daddy boy, well done.
Well, there we go. It might be November, it might be a northerly, but that fresh wind has certainly taken a few fish down into the bay to my right, and the move, most certainly, paid off. Well happy with that. Only been out for a few hours. Obviously got one more night ahead of us, and there's a few fish showing still. As we were playing this one, a couple went over in front of us, which means hopefully there's time for one more bite. There you go. Them shoulders, look. We'll make a brute of you one day.
It's always an exciting time here at Nash when we're working on products. We have a big product development team now, and every now and then one really special product stands out in a range, especially for me at least. And I'm pleased to announce that coming this year in 2024 will be the new Nash Air Force range of rods. Let's be perfectly honest, every year you'll see a company bring out a new range of rods, and it's a little bit difficult to know exactly what makes them better than the rods that were previously developed. In this situation though, I can absolutely guarantee that the Air Force range of rods will be the best 12 and 13 foot rods that the carp fishing market has seen to date. So now I can hear you asking what makes these rods so special. Well, there's a number of different reasons as to why they are the Rolls Royce of carp fishing rods. First of all, they have been in development with some of carp fishing's best casters over the past 2 to 3 years. They use the most highest quality components that the carp fishing market has to offer, and they've actually achieved distances, world record distances in fact. Jermaine Hull, one of our casting consultants, has actually broken a world record with one of our F40 Air Force rods in terms of an overhead carp fishing cast. He sent a lead 272 meters, which is just shy of 300 yards. Now you will have heard from every company that manufactures rods, the 40-ton carbon, the low resin composition, phrases like that, but what do those actually mean? Because they're really important when it comes to explaining why a rod is so good. So I'm going to touch on a few of those now, just so you have a better understanding of why these rods are so good. So first of all, let's start off with the blank construction. The F40 range of rods incorporate a 40-ton Japanese carbon blank, and the F20 rods incorporate a 30-ton Japanese carbon blank. Now what does that exactly mean? To put it in layman's terms, that basically means you need 40 tons of pressure if you have a 40-ton carbon in order to break the rod fibres. What's that going to mean for your fishing rod? Well, basically you're going to have a much more powerful rod and a much better weight to casting ratio, meaning you're going to be able to send that lead further than you were before. These rods also have a low resin construction, which means that the resin pockets in the rods are smaller. So how does that benefit a rod? It means that they're not going to get soft over time, and they're going to be able to maintain power throughout the lifetime of using the rod. But you also have to consider the components that we're using on these rods too. First of all, let's take a look at the eyes and the guides that we're using. These are ultralight titanium, super durable American tackle rings, which combined with that incredible blank construction means that ththese rods are able to achieve record-breaking distances. As you'd expect with these high quality rods, both the F40s and F20s have 50mm butt rings and 16mm anti-frat tip rings, which means that there's hardly any resistance on the line going through the eyes, again to reduce friction, meaning that your lead will go further. Another thing to consider is that both the F40s and the F20s have a 580mm handle length, which creates enough leverage to generate that incredible tip speed, again to make sure that that lead is travelling as fast as speed as possible, and it's going to go further. So we've briefly established just what makes them so special in terms of their blank construction and the components, But of course, as we are all carp anglers, we take pride in our tackle. They also look the part as well. The F40s are the Rolls Royce, the creme de la creme of the range. So let me run you through some of the cosmetics that are featured on those rods. Starting with precision ground 1K carbon weave matte black whippings throughout the rod to give it a sleek black, really nice looking finish. We also have a unique carbon resin butt grip that's textured to make sure that your hand isn't going to slip on the cast. A low profile carbon butt stop, and also a very nice line-friendly carbon line clip. So there's a very brief look at our new Air Force rod range, and as always, if you want more information, make sure you head over to our website where you'll be able to find every little detail you need. Keep your eyes out on our social media, because of course you're going to see these rods more and more over the coming months, and if you're looking for a rod that is absolutely going to change your casting game, then make sure you consider one of the Air Force rods.
Mate, what a result we've had.
Hey, that is mega. I mean, I was a bit scared. This wasn't going to be easy. You know, it's a big old slab of water.
Too right.
Yes, there's a lot of fish in there, but at this time of year, it was never going to be a walk in the park. But result, huh?
And I'll tell you what, it's been really good to get out and fish with
Hey,
you,
we
mate.
never do it, do we?
Never have time. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching. Hope you picked up some big tips from the man himself. And we'll see you soon with another episode of The Drop.